on this Tuesday evening. This is a special setup today. Normally we'll do everything fully Zoom, and Gary, who always co-hosts this, is always at another location, but today Gary is with us live and in the flesh. So this will be an interesting setup. How we do it, I think it'll be fun. It'll be a little bit more interactive. And Gary will just sit there masked the rest of this evening, unless you all have a question. Welcome to Pitch Perfect. This is designed to help you perfect your pitch. The idea of this is for Start Peninsula. We hope that you all have either registered to pitch, are thinking about pitching, or are just waiting to pitch at the next micro pitch in September. But this is formulated based on how you pitch at Start Peninsula. But the thing with Start Peninsula is everything is formatted in such a way that this is going to benefit you no matter if you're pitching at Start Peninsula, at another pitch type event, or if you're getting to raise money for your business, or if you're just looking to check out entrepreneurship in general. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick things off.
Yeah.
You good, Gary?
Yep.
All right. So the agenda today is that we are going to go over the elements of the pitch, and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions, or if you want to practice your pitch, you can go ahead and practice your pitch, and then Gary and I will go ahead and give you feedback. So that being said, what a great idea as we go through the elements of the pitch is if you have a piece of paper, or if you want to just write down notes in terms of like an outline of, for example, the first thing we're going to talk about is what is the problem that you are solving. You can literally write down on a piece of paper, this is the problem I'm solving, and then you're creating an outline. And then when you're done, or when we're done, and if you want to read that outline, then you've really kind of created the skeleton of your pitch, and then we can provide you with feedback for that. So we'll break everything up in those two hour chunks, if you will. Or if we finish early, we'll finish early. But before we get before we go further, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tim Ryan, and I've been involved with Start Peninsula for the last 9 years. I've been working with early stage startups and small businesses for the past 9, almost 10 years. That would be from this type of platform where you're validating your business idea, and then transforming into the angel investment side. So I'm able to look at things from this is what you need to think about from a business. And I also can look at things from, this is how I view things. These are the questions I have. This is my feedback from an investor. So we have that side of the house. Over that time frame, I've worked with multiple hundreds of founders, businesses. So feel pretty confident that I can give you some positive feedback. And we have Gary, who has been with us for several years as well. Gary, I'll let you.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Gary Plaag, and I have been working with Tim, as he said, for the past probably 4 or 5 years on these things. And I come from a background where I was in corporate America, and then I got so fed up with it that I decided cold turkey to quit my job and then try to start a job on my own, start a company. And that was definitely the wrong way to do it. But at the time, there was nobody to help you, and there was no way to pitch your idea and get any feedback. So I like to come and help on these things because, and I'll tell you why my business is in a second, but because there was no help then, I like to be part of helping now so that people have a chance. So the current business that I have that I started 23 years ago is a communication consulting business. So I work with people on their presentation and public speaking skills. And sometimes that ends up morphing into some leadership communications and executive coaching things. So I'm experienced doing presentations, giving not so much pitches, but giving presentations, informative things and persuasive things. And so I can be helpful to you in how you have your pitch organized and the way that you look passionate about it. Because if you don't look passionate about it, nobody's going to believe that they want to be passionate about it either. So some of the tips about how to do that, I'll be sharing. I'll pipe in every once in a while with Tim. And then when you get to the end of our session and you're interested in actually doing a trial run, I encourage you, as Tim has, to go ahead and be brave. And we're all here to learn. And we can give you feedback that will help you move on as you prepare for any pitch you're going to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that's interesting about the pitch is the fact that, and you're going to hear this several times tonight, is the fact that it is a pitch, but it also very much is a performance. So I'll talk to you about the aspects and the elements of the pitch, and Gary, his expertise is talking to you and highlighting your ability to perform. Because trust me, you want to be remembered for a great performance as opposed to
a not so great performance.
Yeah. Not so great performance. So we balance each other very well. I mean, it's always amazing to me to see the finished product with someone who is brand new, coming to something like this tonight for the very first time, and then to see them on stage pitching their business for the very first time, to see that transformation take place. I mean, it's almost magical in the sense of what we're able to do, but really it starts with you and having the courage and stepping up and doing it. So this is really, really fun for me. So let's jump right in. So the purpose of Start Peninsula and the purpose of many, many pitches is the fact that it's going to be a 3-minute pitch. It's going to be followed with a 2-minute question and answer period. But the deal is that we're going to go ahead and we're going to put 3 minutes on the clock so that you can go ahead and get started. You're going to look, you're going to see the judges, or if you're on Zoom, whatever the case is, you're going to see people that are listening to you, judging you, and it's never easy to be judged because this is your baby. This is something that you love, and this is the first time that you're probably going to get feedback on whether something is good or not. So you go out and you look at these judges, and then, next thing you know, we've seen people that just crash and burn. And the whole idea of this Pitch Perfect tonight is to ensure that you do not crash and burn, and you have that amazing pitch and performance that will set you on your way. So the idea of this, and I mentioned this before in the intro, is we're going to outline what the pitch looks like. So we're going to break down 3 minutes for what it is. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to have that attention getter, and it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. 10 seconds, and you get everybody's attention. I mean, it's interesting. Gary and I had a bite to eat before this started, and you're teaching a whole class just on
a 4-hour class,
just on attention.
On how to create an attention getter that gets people to want to listen to what you're going to talk about, because their heads are filled with everything else. And even if you're at a pitch contest, then unless you're the first one, and even if you are the first one, then the judges aren't ready to hear you. And you never know if someone in the audience is going to discover you as well. And so they need to have their palate cleansed so that they're able to take in your information and really be interested in what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, and it's really a great way as well to get yourself in the rhythm. I mean, so that you can work your way into it. We'll get into this in a little bit, but an attention getter, an example of something that is not, is asking a question. The attention getter is not telling people what your name is. So we'll get into this in more detail, but you take 10 seconds, get everyone's attention. Then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to talk about the problem. Some people are optimistic and they'll consider that the opportunity. But what is the problem that you are trying to solve? And take 50 seconds for that. That may seem like a long time, but what we have seen is that people that do not attend this class, they'll talk about their problem for 2.5 minutes, and they try to cram everything else in the last 30 seconds, and then they go nowhere because they've ran out of time and we don't know how they're going to solve the problem. So take 50 seconds, talk about your problem. So on your notebook, paper, or however you're doing notes, the problem I'm trying to solve is, and just start writing down what that problem is. Next thing you're gonna do is talk about the solution. Take an equal amount of time, 50 seconds, talk about how you are solving that. Again, we're gonna get into the more of the details of this. And this is not a recipe, a baking recipe where we have to follow everything to the specific detail. It's not a quarter cup of sugar and a half a cup of flour. This is, we can maneuver all these numbers around as needed, but this is to give you the guide that you need. Now you can talk about your name and who you are, because you've given the audience a reason to listen to you. So then you talk about your name. And now you're getting more into the meat of it. You're talking about the target market. You have 50 seconds to talk about that. And then you have your closing. 15 seconds to close. And in terms of what your close could be, I mean, it could be what help that you need, repeating your company, your name, whatever the case is. This really is more kind of a buffer type of area. Quick way to recap what your pitch is so that you're memorable. So as I said, what you need to do to become successful. And the whole goal of the pitch itself is to make them want more. You're not going to close a sale. You're not going to find an investor that's going to write you a check after that 3 minutes. You simply want to make them want more. You want that follow-up meeting, and then you can work towards that close. So make them want more, and that's your 3 minutes right there. It goes by really, really fast, but this is a great way. It's a simple way to break everything down so that you can start working towards those timelines and finish within the allotted time. Anything you want to add, Gary?
We'll get more details as we go into each of these in greater depth.
Awesome. All right, so that's, speaking of going into more depth, that's some things to consider. When we talk about what we're doing here, so the idea and the innovation of what you are trying to do. And so some things to consider is the 10X rule, if you will. People have a certain behavior on how they do everything that they do in their daily life. And in order to change someone's behavior, you need to do whatever you're doing needs to be on average 10 times better than how they're currently doing it before they're going to change that behavior. So think about what the problem is, how you're solving it, and how you are doing it better. How is it better? How is it faster? Things like that. And in terms of how big is the problem? So the problem that you're solving, it has to be big enough that people they feel that pain point, they want you to solve that problem, they're willing to pay for you to solve that problem. We're not looking for something that's very, very niche, that nobody is going to, that the market size or the total addressable market is a couple hundred people. We want, cities, states, countries, scale across the world. That's what we're looking for in terms of, is the problem big enough? And then how do you differentiate yourself with what's currently out there? Is it better? How so? Is it faster? How so? A lot of people will default to cost. I don't like it when people say that they're the cheapest thing out there. Once you differentiate yourself on cost, and it's really, really hard to increase customer service. It's really hard to differentiate yourself in other ways because your financial model is not going to have the room in order to do that. So, but how do you differentiate yourself in terms of your idea and your innovation? And how much better is that solution? I mean, so some of the stuff may seem really, really obvious when you're doing this, but you have to write this stuff down and you have to tell people, because you're so close to it that you understand it. But just because you understand it in your head doesn't mean that the people that you are talking to are going to understand it.
Yeah, we often run into people in this space, and I've coached them in these pitch type things where they're very clear about why their solution is necessary. And they have a really hard time explaining to other people who haven't been living in that space why this is critically important to do. And so you want to be sure that you have the ability to explain that. And if you don't, other people aren't going to get it. In a contest, the judges aren't going to get it. And if they have to work too hard to try to understand, then they're not going to work that hard. They're just going to shut down and move on. So yeah, you really need to give some thought to, I always like to say, how do you explain this to a 5-year-old? How are you going to explain this to somebody? I often say it has to pass the mom test. When I worked in IT, my mother never understood what I did. And I realized how critical it was for me to be able to explain to my mother at a level that she could understand, instead of her just parroting words and phrases that I gave her, but never understanding it. So think, does it pass the mom test? Can you explain it to kids? And if you can, you have a much better opportunity and chance that the judges and the rest of the audience will understand it.
Yeah, and that was, you led into the point that I was going to make, Gary, was nowhere on there does it talk about like the technical details or the technical components of what it is that your idea is. A lot of the IT type tech heavy businesses, they automatically want to get into the nuts and bolts in terms of how technical the solution is. And that's not going to pass the mom test. And we use Elon Musk and Tesla a lot as an example in this, because when you listen to Elon Musk talk, and he doesn't explain things. I mean, he's arguably the smartest person on this planet. He doesn't get into the nuts and bolts of how this car does this, how this rocket ship does this, what this artificial intelligence piece does this, or how the Tesla bot is going to work. You know, he speaks on a 4th or 5th grade level so that everybody can understand. And that's the same approach that you need to take, just as Gary was saying. So we touched on that. Let's get into the marketability of this. And some things to consider with marketability is, identify who your customer is. A lot of people, when you give a pitch, you're either gaining credibility or you're losing credibility every time that you talk. And if you tell everybody that the entire world is your customer, you've lost credibility. I mean, you need to really narrow down and focus who your customer is so that you can demonstrate your understanding and the size of the market that you're trying to address. So you want to start very, very narrow and then gradually open up the aperture of the market that you are trying to accomplish. So if you think about it in the sense of, if you were given a small amount of money to do Facebook advertising, you want to narrow that down to the smallest demographic of people that you possibly can, and then you can start to open it up. But you need to hit on that core demographic first, and you need to make sure that you understand and you're able to tell people what those unique characteristics are. So if you want to go into real estate, for example, I mean, do you want to go into commercial? Do you want to go into residential? Do you want to go into single family? Do you want to go into condos? Do you want houses that are $500,000 or more? Do you want houses that are $100,000 more? I mean, these are all very different market characteristics that you need to understand what you're doing before you go into it, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for ultimate failure, in the sense of, because if you have a sales approach of selling $100,000 or $150,000 home to someone who is used to the experience of selling $1 million home, it's just, your worlds apart in terms of how that works. And you need to understand who it is that you are servicing and addressing. Otherwise, it's just.
Yeah, the fatal error that people make when they start even talking about their business is that they say that everybody's their client. And clearly everybody's not your client. And so that's to Tim's point. You got to really identify what it is and who the market is and who you're specifically targeting so that you can see if it's even a viable product.
Yep. And what we were just getting at is that the smaller the focus, the better off that you are. And then you can continue to expand to a greater and greater audience. I mean, you just cannot try to conquer the world right off the bat. You can't, it's just very, very difficult. A lot of times the term that we hear is trying to boil the ocean, and that's just not the way to go. So moving on, we're going to talk about how you're going to execute your business. I mean, this is a key area in the sense of, I hear great ideas every day that people pitch to me, but at the end of the day, I mean, an idea is just that, it's an idea. If you want to raise money, people are investing on those people that can execute, that can actually make that idea a reality. That no matter what, you are going to be the one to conquer anything that gets in your way to make sure that you're successful. So things to consider in terms of how you execute is, talking about how you're going to make that a reality. What is the roadmap? What is your plan of action? How are you going to take the steps necessary to do that? And then, taking that one step further, people invest in the people, the founder, the team. It is not the idea. I mean, I've heard so many great ideas, but I know in the back of my mind that, like, there's no way in the world this person's going to be able to do this. You can say that you've come up with the latest machine learning, artificial intelligence, mousetrap in the world that you're guaranteed not to see a mouse within 500 feet or yards of your home, but you're a team of one that has zero technical experience or background, so it's not going to be able to execute on that idea. And so you need to understand that. And if you are a team of one, the thing is, we'll get into the team next, but you need to understand what your why is, because there's lots of memes out there that the whole chart of entrepreneurship is ups and downs and highs and lows. And you need to understand why you're doing this, because the days that you're experiencing that low and you're burning through money and you're just on the ropes, whether if you're going to throw in the towel or try to gut it out, it all comes back to your why. Why are you doing this?
And that why is your passion.
Exactly.
What is it that, even when, as Tim says, even when it's not going well, you refuse to give up. You say, well, I'm going to give it one more try. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to do what I need to do. Maybe I need to pivot here and make this happen this way. But you need to really search your soul and say, is this just a hobby, or is this something that I'm really going to commit myself to? That's a big question.
Yeah. And if you want the answer to the test, if you ever say that you're doing this because there's an opportunity to make a lot of money, you failed the test. Mm-hmm. Because when things get really, really difficult, and then the next time you see an opportunity that could also make a lot of money, you're going to veer off and you're going to take the new opportunity, because that's something fresh and new. It's exciting. So money and the opportunity to make a lot of money should never be your why. And you're going to lose that credibility with anyone you talk to if that is your reason. So with that said, your team. We talked about your team. They are the ones that are going to help you with that execution piece. So things to consider there. You need to showcase your strengths. This is how you're executing this. I mean, if you want to come out, if you have 150 years of experience in this particular field, you want to showcase this. If you have the industry's leading X, Y, or Z that no one else has, you want to make sure that you're showcasing that as your strength. I mean, that's what's going to set you apart, and that's how you're going to show that you are the person and you are the team or you are the business that is going to be the one to solve this problem. So what I was alluding to just a couple minutes ago, if you're talking about how you have this solution that encompasses machine learning and artificial intelligence, and you don't have an AI, ML, machine learning person on your team, how in the world are you going to do this? And it's really, really expensive. So you need to understand what it is that you need and showcase that so that you can move forward. Is there anything else you want to touch on team, Gary?
No, just an example. I coached a young person in high school years ago, and it was trying to get a job, and we were practicing job interview skills. And this is really a kind of a job interview for you as well. And I asked him to tell me something that would not be on his resume. And he thought about it, and he said, well, I was a child actor on television. And I thought, why would that not be on your resume, regardless of the job you wanted? And number two, why are you keeping it a secret? There's so many skills that come with being a child actor on television. And he just wanted to push that down and didn't think it was important. Yet it was vitally important for whatever he was doing, just from a perspective of, I have self-confidence, I can do these various things, blah, blah, blah. It just didn't make sense to me that he wouldn't talk about it. And we tend to do this when we're pitching something. We don't think it's important. We feel like it's bragging. And we don't want to brag about something because we have a forensic accountant who's on our team, who's able to really dig through numbers and help us to understand where things aren't going well and how they could go better. If you're not saying who's on your team that you can brag about, then you're missing the point. And so that's all I would add, is just really sit down and say, what are the strengths that you have? What have you done in the past? And why is that relevant to this thing you are pitching? And who are the people that are in your arena who can help you? They're on your team. So, yeah.
Yeah, and all this stuff leads to the investability of what this business idea or venture is that you are working towards. And before I get into the next slide, I want to share something that I have experienced about this area. As I've said, I've been in this space for 10 years, and there's a really big distinction between those companies that are successful and those that struggle. And the successful companies, what I mean by that, are companies that have invested money and that are doing really, really well. And then the teams that struggle, they're either not in business anymore, or they complain that this area does not have money, there's not opportunity around here, and that they're just going to pack up their stuff and they're going to go to Austin, or they're going to go to San Francisco or Boston or some other place that has a higher density of opportunity. And what everything boils down to, it's these three things. If you want to be successful, you need to have a team, you need to have a product, and you need to have customers. If you don't have those three things and you're trying to raise money, it's not going to happen, because investors do not invest in a blueprint for an idea. So, Gary, you're building a house. The person that you chose to build your house, there was confidence that they had the team, that this blueprint, we have the experience, these are the products that we've done in the past, this is the product that we can produce, and then you invested in them to build you that house. Whereas the teams that have struggled here, if you ask them, well, who is your team? Who is helping you build your business? Well, it's just me. Well, it needs to be more than just you. Start with a co-founder. If you can't sell your idea to someone who wants to be a co-founder, I'm not saying that you need to give 50% of your business to somebody. I'm just saying you need to sell your idea enough and that someone else will believe in it with you, that they want to join forces with you and be a co-founder with you. And you start to build out that team so that you can develop a product. So the next thing, when people say that they haven't been able to raise money here, and you ask them what their product is, and they don't even have a minimal viable product yet, or an MVP, again, investors are not going to invest in just the idea. They need something more than that. So you need to have a product, something in your hand, or something that you can show them that this is what I am doing. And then you have to have your customers. So, and if you have all three of those things, you're going to do really, really well. You're going to get that second meeting because you have the three core elements of what is needed in order to be a fundable company. So that's just a little aside that I wanted to give you all some things to consider in regards to investability. You know, a lot of times, is an investment even necessary? I mean, it's really in vogue and sexy to say that you're raising money, but if you can bootstrap it, bootstrap it. If you can finance your company through debt, finance it through debt. At the end of the day, you know, your goal should be, I want to maintain as much ownership of my company as I possibly can, because every single time you raise money and every round that you go into thereafter, you're going to dilute yourself out of ownership every single time. So you want to try to preserve as much ownership as you can. So is an investment even necessary? And then why do you need that investment? So many people think about why they can't do something until they get money. But yeah, I mean, I like to see the resourcefulness of people, and they explain to me, hey, this is what I'm able to do today. And then once I get to this point, then this is what I'll be able to do. I mean, the likelihood of you getting to the final product of anything that you're starting now is zero. I mean, it's always going to be a continuous improvement. So what can you do today in order to move yourself and your business forward? And then what is that money going to be used for? You need to have an idea of that as well. And then, you know, how are the investors going to make money? Yeah, this is we're not, you, as a business raises money. I mean, this is like a marriage. You're brought together, and they may have one idea in terms of, this is the exit strategy and trajectory that I am on, and you may have something that's completely different. But at the end of the day, the way that investors make money is you either sell the business, you buy them out, or the company IPOs, initial public offering on the stock market. And you need to make sure that everyone is in agreement with something like that, because not everyone has the same life expectancy of having money just hang out there without a return. So you really, this is a whole nother conversation within itself, but having an idea of how that investor is going to make money. And then moving on to what your basic needs are going to be. So if you know that you're missing someone on your team, for example, yeah, this is not something that you need to hide behind. You need to bring this up front and center with everyone. Hey, we need a software developer. We need someone that specializes in IP or patents. We need somebody that specializes in marketing, sales, whatever the case is. Know what your needs are, so that way you're showing everybody, hey, we understand that we don't have all the answers, but we're working towards that. Going back to the part of you're gaining credibility at this point. So using that vulnerability as a strength so that you look more successful as a company. So those are the things that we're talking about in terms of needs. The big thing going is, if you don't share how somebody can help you, then they don't know how they can help you. And the beautiful thing about the entrepreneurial community is the fact that everybody wants to help each other. And it's really a give before you get type of mentality. But if you don't tell anybody how you can be helped, then you don't know what to do. So, make yourself be vulnerable and share that as a strength and not necessarily as a weakness. I mean, the other aspect with that is a coachability factor, because, again, if you want to be investable, if you want to succeed, you have to be coachable, because if you come across as you already know the answers to everything, well, guess what? No one's going to want to be involved with you because you already know everything anyway.
And we've seen those people. I remember a friend told me one time, a coach, it was sort of a mentor for me. This is before I started my business, and thought this was a great idea, and I wasn't sure. And I kept talking to people about it. And he said to me one time, Gary, you have to tell people what you want, and then they'll help you get it. But if you don't tell them what you want and what you need, they can't help you. And the only way for that to happen for you is for you to talk about it. And so I did. I started doing that, started telling people about my idea and what I wanted to do and how I needed to do it. And they started to help me. They would find opportunities that I didn't even think were available. So, and I want to go back to the house analogy that Tim brought up earlier. And so I am building this house, and not physically me building, but I have a builder building it. And I chose him because of his strengths, because he's from the area, because he's been there for many, many years, because he only does 5 houses a year, because he knows all the contractors in town and in the area that he can get them to do work for him. And I knew that about him. And I know other people that I run into in town who have other builders who are delayed months and months and months. And so really, because my builder was willing to share his expertise, his experience, why he's good at this, but he only wants 5 clients a year. He doesn't want 100 clients because he can't do any of them any good. So it was a strength for him to say, I only take 5 gigs a year. You go, okay, well, can I be one of those 5? It's almost scarcity was a strength for him, because then he doesn't burn out his contractors and everything. So that's knowing those strengths is really, really valuable. And so just to piggyback on Tim's stuff.
Nice. And that was an analogy on the fly that we've never used before.
It was.
So that was neat.
It was.
So some of the tricks of the trade, we're going to round everything out here, but this is a lot of where Gary comes into play. And I don't know if you want to take the slides, Gary, or if you want me to get it, but
yeah, we can go through here. So the old joke is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer is practice, practice, practice. And if you want to do well in sharing your idea with an audience, if that's in a pitch contest, if it's actually meeting with investors, if it's being on Shark Tank, whatever it is, you've got to practice. And a lot of people just put all of their energy into writing down what words they're going to say, and then they memorize the words, but they never stand up in front of a camera and practice what this is going to feel like standing in front of a bunch of people who are looking like they're judging you. So really, really critical that you practice what you're going to do. And practice, we always say practice makes perfect. That's not true. Practice makes permanent. And perfect practice makes perfect. But practice makes permanent. If you play those scales on the violin or the piano incorrectly every time, you're always going to play them incorrectly. So just because if you're practicing wrong things, then you're going to do wrong things. If you're practicing effective and powerful things, that's going to be better for you. And that's also why I suggest, it may come up later here, but that you want to use the video recording options that we have, where you can go back and see yourself as others are going to see you. You'll hear your voice, you'll hear what they hear, you'll see what they see. All those things are extremely valuable.
And painful.
And they're very painful. Yes, you will much rather do something else than that. Yes.
But that's what sets everybody apart.
Right.
For sure.
Tim mentioned before, sometimes like the class that I'm going to teach for some folks is in a couple of months, the one that he mentioned before on just intros. If you have a 30-minute presentation that you're doing for board of directors somewhere and you want to start with a question, then you probably can because you have the time. In this venue, we only have 3 minutes. So asking questions is a time waster because then you're waiting for a response. And you also may not get the response that you're looking for. And so you can suck up a whole bunch of time with a question. So we suggest that you not start with a question. Do not start with your name because they don't care yet. Your name at the end or somewhere in the middle, once they understand that this is something worth listening to, then great. Please know that in this pitch contest, you may not even need to say your name until the very end, but you're going to get introduced anyway. It's going to have your company's name and it's going to have the name, your name, if you're the presenter. And so it's going to be sitting up there the whole time anyway. You don't need to waste another 3 or 4 to 10 seconds with your name. It's a good idea in other types of venues. In our venue, your name is on the slide anyway. Sometimes we want to tell everybody all about how to make the watch. The person just asked what time it was. And we want to give them all the details about how to make a watch. So this is the hard part. Delete anything that's irrelevant to your story. If it doesn't fit, or it's a detail that you don't need to share right now, get rid of it. We always are afraid with it, what they call, you don't want to cut you feel like your story is your baby and all the juicy tidbits in it make it really beautiful, but we never want to kill those things. We never want to strike them. We just want to keep them because we think they're important. Ask other people when you practice and you do this thing, ask them what the most important things they heard were. And they'll tell you things that you can get rid of. Or they didn't even notice that you said it. Well, then get rid of it. So, yeah. As Tim mentioned before as well, it's a story and it's a performance. And I would strike the word presentation from your vocabulary, that in your head, this is a performance. You're here to do a performance. And performances mean that you are involved in your core. That it means put your phone away, turn it off, take any watches off of you that buzz or beep, any kind of thing that takes you out of being in the performance. You want to get rid of that because you need to be present and available in this 3-minute period. So know that it's your story and know that it's a performance. For every slide or line that you add, you need to ask yourself, is it helping the story? If it's not, get rid of it. Is it taking away from the story? Am I telling a story that makes my idea or my product look bad? Am I possibly, when you're talking about your marketability, don't bash your competition. That detracts from your story. And that tells the people that are listening that the only way that your product will not, or your service or whatever, won't stand on its own. It only stands above if you knock down the other competitors. So, and you never know who's listening anyway. So that would be a bad thing. And all of us in this entrepreneur space are really should be trying to help each other. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's with that, I mean, so it's like when you're focusing on there's ways to differentiate yourself than bashing your competition.
Correct.
I mean, it's just so you have to think about things creatively in the sense of it's almost like an active voice, passive voice kind of thing. I think passive voice is almost going after your competition, where active voice is talking about how you are doing something better than, or this is how we do it and how and because we do it
and
this
why
way,
that's relevant.
Right.
This is how we do it. This is our strategy. This is why, which leads the thing to go, I wonder why XYZ company does it the other way. It doesn't seem to be as efficient as this. Then they've come to that conclusion themselves, but you're not bashing the competition.
Yeah, and so to leave off with, this rounds out the pitch aspect of everything. The other aspect is when you're done with this 3-minute pitch, then everything is opened up for a 2-minute question and answer period. And so we'll just dive into the Q&A aspects of this. And the interesting thing that we find, well, let me back up for a second. The way that we do everything in terms of the question and answer is each judge will be given the opportunity to ask their question. So judge 1 will ask their question, judge 2 will ask their question, judge 3 will ask their question. And then you write down what those questions are. And then after the judges ask those questions, then you have the opportunity. We put 2 minutes on the clock and then you answer those questions. And some people really, they freak out when they realize that they have to do this. They're really, really nervous. They're writing stuff down. They want to, and this being the first time that they talk about this baby of theirs, the first time it's been seen in public, this part freaks them out. But what we have found is by consolidating the questions and answering them all in rapid succession, we want to teach you and force you to be direct and answer those questions in a very succinct, rapid fashion. You know the information and material better than anyone else. And on a side note, I guess if the judge just knows more than you, then maybe you're not the person for the business. But what we find is that a lot of times the people during the question and answer period, that's where they shine. And we've seen a lot of companies advance and a lot of founders advance in the question and answer period because it's not scripted. That's when they're speaking from the heart and they just answer the question. And with that time constraint and with them having to answer all of those questions, they do have to be succinct, because other times when you see judges ask questions, you can just see the confidence level of these founders continue to diminish and diminish and diminish. And with every time they diminish, they go into this long-winded answer, and then they're taking away the credibility, because just be confident, answer the question and move on. What would you like to share about question and answer period, Gary?
I think a great way that you can protect yourself or prepare yourself, I guess, for Q&A things is to, a game I like to play with people is when they're telling me all this stuff about their idea, and then and I ask a question and they want to give me an answer, and then I'll say something like, so what? And then they try to answer and I go, well, so what? And then they go, well, because, well, so what? Like, let's get to the point of why this is important. And it's very frustrating for them. But when I've done these, I've done pitches. I've been a pitch coach for big government contracts that construction firms and other kind of companies are trying to bid for. Could be IT things or whatever. And there's always, in the oral component, there's usually a Q&A afterwards. So when those teams are practicing, and we've been practicing for 2 weeks, and we're ready for what they call our murder board, and we're ready for the big wigs in the company to come in and grill all of the people that are going to be at the pitch. And the kinds of questions they ask are terrifying. And it's really, our job is to find as many holes in this pitch as possible. And they do that with the questions. And so I would suggest that as you practice and prepare, that you assemble a murder board of people that you may know from the community who know something about this thing that you're doing, your friends, people who you want to challenge you, and have them challenge you. Because that would be way better than getting surprised at the pitch. So as many things as and encourage your audience to be tough on you. They don't have to be disrespectful. They don't have to be nasty to you, but they can certainly ask you hard questions. And I would be looking for all the hard questions you could possibly get.
So awesome.
One thing that we didn't mention earlier, which Tim and I always laugh about, is that in the time that we've been working together, we always have people who come in with this great solution that doesn't really have a problem to go with it. And so we always joke about, oh, there's a solution looking for a problem. And somebody thinks it's the greatest thing ever, but it's really not a problem to anyone. And so really make sure that your solution has an actual problem, so that Tim and I don't say things like that, like this is a solution looking for a problem, because it's not interesting and it's never going to move. So just one thing that we didn't say.
And I think that time-wise, we actually finished 5 minutes ahead. We said the first hour was going to be talking about the components of the pitch. And then the second hour will be to anybody that wants to practice their pitch. If they have any questions about it, there's all of our contact information. So we really encourage everyone that wants to participate or is thinking about participating in Start Peninsula to do that. Not wanting to put words in or sign Gary up for anything that he doesn't want to do, but I mean, we have had people that have sent us video recordings of their pitch and asked for feedback, and we've done that as well. But again, it comes down to, hey, what can we do to help you, and what are the things that you need? But happy to open this up to any questions that anybody has.
I see there's 4 things in the chat.
And yeah, so yeah, certainly the KISS method certainly is applicable.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want to do a pitch?
Or if anyone would like to see go back to a slide. If not, then I'll go ahead and stop the screen share.
So no one has their camera on tonight.
I have a question for you, Tim and Gary. You guys spoke a little bit about scalability. Can you elaborate on that?
On scalability?
Yeah.
So what the idea about scalability is being able to do more with the same amount of effort that it takes to do one. So for example, IT software as a service is something that is known for being scalable, and you develop the code, you build the software to do the one thing, and then as it scales, it grows bigger, you're able to use that code for multiple people. Many people, thousands of people, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people. So it just uses that single code set in order to do that. That's the idea of scaling. So I guess if you want to look at it from from a different aspect, away from software as a service, a restaurant, for example, if you were making the ingredients for a cup of soup, rather than making a cup of soup for every one customer that wants to order that soup, if you prepare it in a big pot, now you're doing the same actions. The ingredients obviously are larger, but it's the same actions, and you're able to serve multiple people with that same relative level of effort needed to do that. So that is what, from a scalable business standpoint, that's what investors are looking for. They're not looking for, like with me or Gary, a consulting type of industry or government contracting type of industry. It's not really an investable business because you're exchanging dollars for hours, and there's only so many hours in the day, and it's really, really difficult to scale that in a business model.
Yeah, it's like a therapist who's the therapist probably can't scale except to the amount of time that he or she has, because that therapist, and I feel a little bit like that in my business, and Tim as well, is that people come to us because, so we really have a practice and not really a scalable business if you're giving consulting information, unless you're willing to let go of the quality of the product. But you look at it's like a Chick-fil-A or something, and they're scalable because they use the same product. It's made the same way. It's that recipe is always the same, and they can make 100 tons of it, or they can make 1 pound of it. And it's always the same though. And that's scalable for them. So they can open another Chick-fil-A #2 in this town of 25,000 people and probably have both of them be swamped. And so they know how to scale. I can't really scale mine except to the point of the limit of my ability to serve people as a consultant. I only have so many hours in the day, and I personally am not interested in scaling because the quality that I can't guarantee someone else is going to treat people the same way. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
So Hassan, has Tim, your thoughts on blue ocean, red ocean theory?
Yeah, honestly, I don't have any thoughts on that. That's really truth be told, it's a first heard for me, and I believe that I'm pretty well versed in my reading and listening and travel. So I don't necessarily have any thoughts on that, but I'll certainly check it out once this concludes. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Mm.
But yeah, we will. So this is also being shown on the Start Wheel YouTube channel. The recording of this will be posted on the Start Peninsula website, and we can also work on. We'll get the slides out to everyone as well.
Cool. Gavin, did you want to pitch tonight and do a practice?
I'm still working on it. On it, Gary. Next time.
Yeah, but I'm happy to answer anything. I mean, I can talk about this stuff. We skimmed over a lot because we wanted to keep everything flowing. So a lot of this stuff can be expanded upon quite a bit.
I can ask one more question, Tim. If the business has some traction in numbers, how important is that to show in your pitch, and where's the best place to put those numbers in?
Yeah, definitely is super important, and you want to make sure it's so that you're tracking that month-over-month growth, so that that within itself is telling a story, so that you can show that, hey, every month I'm growing 10%, 20%, whatever the case is, so that you can show that your business is on the right trajectory. So in terms of where you would show that, when you're identifying, hey, these are our customers, this is who they are, this is what we've accomplished so far, and this is the trajectory that we're on. But yeah, showing that growth is really important.
Okay, no one's beating the door down, so will everybody go?
Making it easy. We're just lucky enough to be able to see Gavin on our screen right now.
I know,
So we can stare at Gavin.
It's a fine specimen of a human. We from outer space
Gavin,
are looking at humans.
So with it, what are the Start Peninsula dates? We have a micro pitch competition coming up September 15th.
Yep. So our next micro pitch competition is September 15th. The link to apply is in the chat. Get those applications in, so they fill up fast. And then we have our championship pitch event on November 3rd. So sign up to attend that as well. And then we'll advance all of our winners from our 4 micro pitches to that event too.
Yeah, so the way that everything has worked is we have 4 micro pitches, 10 people pitch at each micro pitch event. The top 3 from each of those micro pitches then advance to November, like Gavin said. And then the top 3 winners in November each get $5,000 in seed funding. So, and then we continue to add more and more prizes to the kitty, so to speak, for people that make it to the finals in November. But this is no better way to validate your business idea in the peninsula or on Hampton Roads.
Kimberly has shown her face. Did you want to do a practice?
She's muted.
Maybe not.
We lost Kimberly.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
All right, everybody. Well, if we can be.
Kimberly, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Okay.
Well, everyone, thank you so much. If we can answer any questions, please let us know. We look forward to seeing you September 15th at the micro pitch competition. Thank you to everyone that joined. We'll get out everything as promised within the next day or two at the most. Awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.